It was easier to know it than to explain why I know it. If you were asked to prove that 2 and 2 made 4, you might find some difficulty, and yet you were quite sure of the fact. So you probably noticed that something is off, uncomfortable to watch, and that would be my audio is out of sync with the video. This is a common problem when your audio device is separate from your video device. Now for my webcam, I am running a Lumix GH5S. If you know what that is, then you do know that it is overkill for a webcam, but that's what I'm using. And my microphone is the Shure SM7DB running into the Rodecaster Duo, which I recently got. Previously, I was using this right here, the Focusrite Scarlett Solo. It was a simple interface. It delivered some pretty clean audio. However, what it wasn't doing was audio processing for me. I want something to handle like the compressor, noise gate, and EQ before the computer. 2 reasons. 1, to take the workload off the computer. 2 is I have it set up on a switch, a USB switch, because I have my work computer and my home computer. And I actually like to use this mic for work because I believe it's important at work to have clear audio for meetings. So I have a 1-button setup that allows me to switch the output to either device. But I wanted uniform audio. I wanted to be able to make sure that I could set settings on my interface that were applied to either device. Now, on my Windows computer, this computer, there's a sync problem. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can fix the sync in OBS with the help of ChatGPT. So to get started, what we're going to do is do a slate marker. So this is a slate app. This will probably remind you of slates you see from film sets, but you can get these as little apps. They're very useful. So what I'm going to do is trigger it like this. All right, but we needed a good sharp sound. Now you could get roughly the same effect by clapping your hands, but I really like this app. So now we're going to take this video and we're going to jump into DaVinci Resolve and just see how offset the audio is from the video. All right, here we are in DaVinci Resolve. Now you can actually use any video editing program. It doesn't have to be this one. This just happens to be what I use. So we have 2 audio tracks. The way I have it set up in OBS is track 1 is from the microphone and track 2 is from the camera. So the first thing I need to do is unlink the clips like this. And let's zoom in so we can see how much offset there needs to be applied to get the microphone to match the camera. I'm going to undo that. So what I'm going to do is with this first audio track selected for the microphone, I'm going to hit the period key on the keyboard. Now this is for Resolve. You'll have to figure out what the hotkey is on your editor. And what this does is it will bump that clip right 1 frame each time I hit it. So there's 1 frame, 2, 3, 4, 5, still not quite there, 6. 6 goes over. So it feels like it's about 5.5-ish. I'm going to go with 5.5. In OBS, you can put in an offset value on an audio track in milliseconds. So how do you calculate 5.5 frames from 23.976 frames in milliseconds? Well, yeah, there's math you can do, or you can use AI. Here we are in ChatGPT, and I'm going to say, how many milliseconds is 5.5 frames in a 23.976 frame rate? And so it's going to give us the formula. So if you really want to do this by hand, it's going to tell you how right here. So 5.5 frames at a frame rate of 23.976 frames per second is approximately 229.3 milliseconds. All right. So here's OBS, way it's set up. And what we're going to do is you hit this little cogwheel right here. Let me remember what that was, 229 milliseconds. So I'm going to say 229 milliseconds, just like that. So let's test it out. It was easier to know it than to explain why I know it. If you were asked to prove that 2 and 2 made 4, you might find some difficulty, and yet you were quite sure of the fact. All right, so that does look a lot better. However, if we look closely at the waveforms, let's get down here, and I'm going to grab the camera, bring it up. You still see it didn't quite sync up, and I run into this, right? Even when I was doing like manual calculations, it always seemed to be a little bit off each time. Now, I think part of the challenge is, so if I just hit the right one frame key, it seems to line up. So there's something off going on in the original formula. Maybe you have to compute one extra frame. So what I do know, it's approximately 42 milliseconds for one frame. All right, so let's go back here. So we need to add 42 to this, so that's 271. And I actually don't ChatGPT for this part. I'm not that dumb. Cool, now let's test that out. It was easier to know it than to explain why I know it. If you were asked to prove that 2 and 2 made 4, you might find some difficulty, and yet you were quite sure of the fact. All right, that still sounds and looks pretty good. If we zoom in though, right, you'll still see that now the microphone is just a little bit after the camera. So this is something I've always run into. There always seems to be some sort of mild drift. Now, there could be a lot of things going on, maybe extra processing on the audio interface, maybe it's lagging the computer, but I've never been able to find the perfect millisecond setting to get perfectly synced audio every single time. There always seems to be some little tiny drift. Now, to be honest, for most streaming, if you keep it within like one frame, I don't think most people will notice. However, if you are a perfectionist, then I suggest getting that Slate app. Here, where's mine again? Getting an app like this and slating at the start of every single video that you're recording and just doing minor tweaks in post. I actually do that a lot. I will do that a lot. Not for everything that I record, but a lot of times if I'm going to be producing something, I will slate. Not all the time for streaming content. I just don't worry about it. But even sometimes, like if I'm recording a tutorial, which I'm probably going to do later today, then I might actually slate at the start of it because I like to double check my audio at the beginning. Because I've had a few occasions I would be editing the video and I'm looking at it, I'm like, something looks off. And then I realize my audio and video's off and it's really driving me nuts. And so it's really hard to line up audio with your lips. And it's a lot easier if you have a slate, some sort of reference. Otherwise, you're going through and you're looking for like hard consonants or like P's and trying to match that pop in the audio with that in your video. It's really frustrating. You can waste a lot of time with that. So for what it's worth, I do think just having one of these little slate apps can save you some time. But for the most part, I think you get within one frame, especially for streaming, you're going to be okay most of the time. Well, I hope this information was useful to at least one person out there. If you have other tips you'd like to share, please leave them in the comments. I'm sure other viewers would be interested. Well, that's all I have for this video. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again next time.